Today on Rappler, the government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front failed to agree on wealth sharing in talks in Kuala Lumpur. The United States agrees to look into Philippine Army records extending benefits to more Filipino World War II veterans. And Boston bombing suspect Dzhokhar Tsarnaev pleads not guilty to all charges. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. Moro Islamic Liberation Front Peace Panel Chairman Mohagere Iqbal says the 38th round of talks with government ends without any agreement. The entire MILF panel leaves the negotiating table shortly after 5 p.m. Thursday without signing any documents with the government. Both sides could not agree on the details of wealth sharing between the envisioned Bangsamoro political entity and the central government. The government refused to sign any documents twice in March and April, even after an initial draft was completed in February. On Thursday, MILF Peace Panel members left the venue of the talks at the Palace of the Golden Horses. In a text message to Rappler, Iqbal says the government panel is too rigid, as if their mandate is cast in stone. There's limited chance we return. In an ambush interview after a closed-door caucus with her team, Government Peace Panel head Miriam Ferrer says, "Yes, we're still trying." The visit of presidential spokesman Edwin Lacerda apparently didn't help move the negotiations. President Benigno Aquino sent Lacerda and Presidential Advisor on Peace, Teresita Deles, to Kuala Lumpur Thursday to talk with representatives. A source says Lacerda, quote, relayed a message from Aquino to both parties. Asked about whether Aquino's message had any impact on the talks, Iqbal says, "Don't know. I'm out already. 4 days engaged in fruitless talk." An agreement would have been a breakthrough for the peace process since this is tied to power sharing, one of the two remaining items on the agenda. Both parties are under pressure to arrive at an agreement given the difficult transition to their envisioned Bangsamoro political entity. President Aquino and the MILF want all this to happen under his term. That's 3 years left. Asked whether a breakthrough is still possible, Deles says there's hope as long as both sides are in problem-solving mode.
It's my job to stay hopeful. We know this is a tough job. It gets tougher as we get into the details. I'm reading still that people, that side, both sides, desire more that we're able to move forward than not. And that when the two sides are in that mode, then I cannot but hope that we will in fact be able to push it forward.
A Commission on Audit report shows Malacanang's Communications Office spent 5.58 million pesos for commission surveys in 2012. It is the single biggest item in the 2012 expense report of the Presidential Communications Development and Strategic Planning Office. It accounts for 26.71% of the 20.88 million peso increase in the office's budget for maintenance and other operating expenses. It was also an entirely new item in the MOOE because the agency reported no such expense in its 2010 and 2011 expense breakdowns. The COA report says the money went to private survey firms, Pulse Asia, and social weather stations, and was spent to, quote, assess the public's perspectives on national issues and the performance of the administration. Communications Secretary Ricky Carandang says his office subscribed to the surveys only in 2012 and adds it's part of his function to, quote, know and understand public opinion. President Aquino approves a 2.268 trillion peso budget for 2014 following cabinet deliberations that ended at 10:30 p.m. Wednesday. The president will submit the proposed budget to Congress when it opens on July 22 after the State of the Nation address. Communications Secretary Ricky Carandang says the budget's thrust remains inclusive growth. Carandang adds, we're enhancing social protections and creating opportunities for employment by focusing on job-generating sectors. Will the 2016 polls affect the deliberations of the national budget? Senator Nancy Binay says she and United Nationalist Alliance or UNA senators will check the budget of the Interior Department and the administration's conditional cash transfer program. In a meeting Thursday, the UNA senators agree the budget will be the first order of business when the 16th Congress opens on July 22. President Aquino approved the 2.268 trillion peso budget proposal for 2014. Binay says the president said he made the budget in a way that it will ensure inclusive growth, so we will check if that will have a trickle-down effect. Binay plans to look into the budgets of particular agencies.
Siguro yung DSWD kasi yung mga social services dun sa agency na yun. Kasama na siguro yung CCP tsaka yung DILG. Kasi una-una, diba, sanay ako sa local governments kasi for the longest time, yung father ko, yung mother ko, naging mayor, kaya malapit din sa puso ko yun.
Acting Senate President Jinggoy Estrada says UNA will check reports the administration's Conditional Cash Transfer Program, or CCT, was used to bankroll the campaign of administration allies. He says, "We will not be obstructive in the CCT program. We will check if it's really successful. If not, why waste billions of pesos for dolouts?" The Senate minority will be composed of Estrada, Binay, Juan Ponce Enrile, Tito Soto, Gringo Anasan, and JV Ejercito. The group will field Enrile as Senate Minority Leader. Today, July 11th, World Population Day. The United Nations and women's advocates are focusing on teenage mothers. Their vision? A world with no unwanted pregnancies. Buena Bernal reports.
Children bearing children. Women's health advocate Mayi Fabros says women are more vulnerable during their teens.
So this is a stage wherein they want to try out. Diba kaya ang sinasabi nila, mapusok ang mga kabataan, which puts them all the more at risk, especially if they do not have the information and the right decision-making skills.
Government data shows more and more teenagers are getting pregnant and more of them are dying while in labor. Casey Fernandez bore her baby at age 14.
Sana nga na hindi ko ginawa yun. Sana hindi mo na ako nag-asawa para hanggang ngayon, kahit saan ako pumunta, kahit anong gawin ko sa buhay, kumbaga yung kahit mag-aaral ako ng mag-aaral, magagawa ko.
Advocates say comprehensive sexual education and an openness to talk about sex in the family may reverse the trend. Department of Health official Juan Antonio Perez says with the reproductive health law, schools and health workers will hopefully be more sensitive to adolescents' sexual curiosity.
In some areas of the country, local executives or maybe even health officers may unilaterally say we will not provide RH services. With the law, that will not be possible.
The law is temporarily suspended and is being argued in the Supreme Court.
Sabi ko, wala naman sa edad yan eh, basta mahal mo. Parang ganun sinabi ko po.
Casey used to tell herself she was in love. Now she looks back and says, young girls shouldn't grow up so fast. Buena Bernal, Rappler, Manila.
Policemen killed 3 of the kidnappers of a Filipino-Chinese in an entrapment operation Thursday. Davao City Police Chief Rodneil Quiteles says they received information a payoff was going to happen at the parking lot of a bank. At least 14 kidnappers arrived in 3 SUVs while police forces took positions for the entrapment operation. Police arrest only 1 kidnapper while the rest flee aboard 2 SUVs. Local authorities were alerted that the Kidnap for Ransom group, which was holding captive Sally Chua, was in the city for the payoff. Chua was allegedly kidnapped in Quezon City July 5. She was not harmed during the operation. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, has a new vehicle coding scheme called the EDSA Road Space Rationing Program. MMDA says this is expected to reduce by 40% the volume of private vehicles passing through EDSA during peak hours. The plan will stop private vehicles with specific license plate endings from driving on EDSA at 7 to 10 a.m. and 5 to 8 p.m. For our social media post of the day, Gerald Santos comments on the proposal. He says, quote, Why punish the car owners? More than half of the buses plying the EDSA route, observe them and you'll see that they're always half empty. Buses are simply not optimized. If the MMDA or the government really do want the people to use public transportation, by all means, improve first the MRT, LRT systems. The United States government will give more Filipino World War II veterans benefits after it agreed to consider Philippine Army records to verify veterans' claims. In a tweet Thursday, the Philippine Embassy in the U.S. says the White House, quote, agrees to consider Philippine Army records in evaluating appeals of World War II veterans for benefits. This means over 4,000 World War II veterans will get a second chance to avail of benefits under the Filipino Veterans Equity Compensation Fund. Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Joey Quisha, says, we're hopeful that the procedures introduced will result in more appeals being approved and the processing time being reduced. Roshi Cloud, Director of Policy for Veterans at the White House, says the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs created a special team to process appeals for the FVEC fund. This is a departure from previous U.S. policies on Filipino veterans. Before this, the U.S. refused to acknowledge records from the Philippine Army. This prevented up to 4,000 Filipinos from getting the one-time lump sum payment U.S. President Barack Obama awarded to Filipino World War II veterans in 2009. The European Union and the Philippines launch a joint program worth 540 million pesos to help the government address human rights violations. Called the European Union Philippine Justice Support Program 2, it aims to improve the poor's access to an efficient justice system. It will take more than 4 years to reach its goals in partnership with different government agencies. Interior Secretary Mar Rojas says the program will help the government's efforts to strengthen law enforcement, the judiciary, and prosecution to quickly resolve cases. Boston bombing suspect Dzhokhar Tsarnaev pleads not guilty to all charges during his arraignment in a U.S. federal court Wednesday. In handcuffs and shackles, wearing an orange jumpsuit, the 19-year-old pleads not guilty to charges of using a weapon of mass destruction, conspiracy, and bombing of a place of public use and carjacking. The courtroom in Boston is filled with emotional victims of the April 15th bombings at the Boston Marathon finish line and a few others who say they were friends or supporters of the teenager. The bombings killed 3 and injured more than 260. Tsarnaev is accused of plotting and carrying out the attacks with his 26-year-old brother Tamerlan, who died in a shootout with police. The trial is expected to last 3 to 4 months, with the next hearing set for September 23. Let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 5, police say 20 people are confirmed dead and 30 are missing in Saturday's train crash in Lac-Mégantic, Canada. The freight train carrying oil crashed after rolling downhill towards Lac-Mégantic, sparking a massive inferno that tore through part of the town. Police say the crash was likely caused by an engineer's failure to set the brakes. At number 8, a judge finds Apple guilty of a price-fixing conspiracy for electronic books. Judge Denise Coates says the company, quote, conspired to restrain trade with publishers to boost the price of ebooks. She orders a new hearing to determine damages. On Wednesday, Apple says it will appeal the decision. And at number 10, Lady Gaga, one of the most followed celebrities on Twitter, shuts down her account. The international singer's picture is now of a Twitter egg along with a bio which reads, "This interface has been shut down temporarily. Please check back for updates." Tweets posted after February 6 have also been deleted. Her last post refers to her upcoming album, Art Pop, slated for release this year. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel and your vote comes down to the Mood Navigator that's in the middle of the front page that crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have affected our readers, Rappler's readers, the most emotionally. If you take a look today, it's a very green day. This week, we had Sereno, Supreme Court may not be the best forum for RH. You have 1% angry, 1% annoyed, 1% inspired, but a whopping 96% happy. The story that's gotten the most number of votes on the mood meter is this one: Facebook troll jailed over massacre threat. Interestingly enough, you have 3% angry, 4% don't care, and a whopping 85% inspired. That green, this green here, leading to the mood of the day. Today, most people are happy. Well, that's Rappler's Newscast for today, Thursday, July 11, 2013. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.